Today, on episode 65 of the Be a Marketer podcast, you'll hear from a founder that dropped out of college and over 40 years later, still hasn't looked back. And I'm sharing why none of us stand alone as small business marketers. This is the Be a Marketer podcast.
Be a Marketer.
My name is Dave Charest, Director of Small Business Success at Constant Contact, and I help small business owners like you make sense of online marketing. And on this podcast, we'll explore what it really takes to market your business, even if marketing's not your thing. No jargon, no hype, just real stories to inspire you and practical advice you can act on. So remember, friend, you can be a marketer, and at Constant Contact, we're here to help. Before we get to our conversation today, I wanted to remind you that none of us stand alone as small business marketers. I was reminded of this fact at an event Kelsey and I were at recently. We had struck up a conversation with a new business owner, and she was an older woman who had just started her business thanks to the encouragement of her kids. And she went on to tell us that the event really highlighted the need for participating in the business community. And so I wanted to remind you to get out there and meet other business owners. Although it may feel like it at times, you're not alone when it comes to running your business or trying to figure out your marketing. I know you'll find that other small business marketers are not only eager to connect with you, they're also happy to share what they've learned. Even today's guest reminded us over 40 years in business is due to a great band of people pushing and pulling as hard as they can to move the company forward. It was a good reminder for me, and I hope a good reminder for you. So if you're feeling alone, make sure you seek out local and online resources and communities to gain the camaraderie, knowledge, and inspiration to push you to the next level. And of course, remember that you can come to the Constant Contact community to connect with other Constant Contact customers like yourself. Okay, enjoy today's episode. I am here with Kelsey Carter. Hello, Kelsey Carter.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, Kelsey, I'm excited to talk about our guest and share this interview that we had here today in this conversation because what people probably don't know about you, and I was surprised to find out when I learned it myself, was that you're quite the outdoorsy type of person, aren't you?
I am. I do love the outdoors. Just growing up in New England, it's kind of just born into you.
I bet then you were kind of excited to have this conversation that we had with our guest today, yes?
Absolutely. I can definitely tell you a little bit more about him because I'm
Well, please do.
very thrilled. Today we have Matthew Polstein and Tallie Martin from the New England Outdoor Center joining us. They're located in the beautiful state of Maine. It's a destination resort that's evolved from its origins in whitewater rafting, canoeing, and kayaking into a comprehensive retreat offering lodging and dining and a variety of outdoor adventures. They recently even opened up an event space where you can have your wedding.
Pretty cool, like all the stuff that this has evolved into, and you'll hear more about this in our conversation today. But I think we should also mention, too, that the Small Business Administration honored Matt, the president of NEOC, as a 2024 National Small Business Person of the Year for the state of Maine. And this is kind of a big deal. I mean, the businesses that receive this honor are evaluated on certain criteria, such as staying power, growth in the number of employees, increase in sales, net profit, net worth for 3 prior calendar years, all of this stuff, response to adversity, and even contributions to community-oriented projects. And what I love about this is that Matt actually grew up immersed in the natural beauty of Maine and the world of that competitive kayaking and all of that. And so through our conversation, we also learned that Matt made this bold decision to kind of take a break from college, never look back from that, still kind of taking that break, right? This is what we're like 40 years later, which was interesting because he wanted to become a guide in terms of rafting and all of those types of things. But his parents were both professors. And so you can imagine that was somewhat of a difficult conversation to have. But he did this at a time where really the state was about to regulate access to the rivers. And so that would mean it would be hard for businesses to kind of get the allocation of the space on the busy days. And so he really needed to take that moment to jump ahead and go forward. And as I mentioned, 40 years later, this business has kind of evolved into a full-fledged destination resort. And so we talked to Matt, of course, and then, you mentioned we talked to Tallie Martin as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Tallie?
Yeah, so Tally, she actually brings this fresh new perspective. She actually joined the team back in 2016. And while she was actually still in college, she saw the chance to combine her education with real world experience through an internship in marketing at the resort. And just like Matt, she did not wait to jump at that opportunity. She's now the business's marketing manager, but not only that, she guides and teaches canoeing and kayaking to students through a program called the Maine Outdoor Education Program that they run. She wears a lot of hats, which I'm sure a lot of business owners are very familiar with. But both of their commitment and dedication have really contributed to the explosive growth that the business has seen over the years.
Yeah. So look, 40 years, amazing. Any business kind of reaching that level and that longevity is really amazing. And the reality is, right, a business really doesn't survive that long without making adjustments and looking for things that may be competitive advantages and opportunities for growth. So let's go to Matt, where he explains more.
From our start, we sort of stumbled into the idea that having a broader amenity base was an important competitive element in the main rafting industry. We all rafted the same river. We might have different colored rafts, but they weren't that different. And so to distinguish yourself from our competition, if you had an amenity base, lodging of some form, a nice campground, good food, you could market that over just, the same old, we all run the same river. And so we bought an old hotel, was sort of run down over in the Forks on the Kennebec River, and we ran that for a while. And then we kept that hotel and we bought another property, which was a beautiful old inn called the Sterling. It was called the Sterling Hotel. We rebranded it the Sterling Inn and completely renovated it and ran it as a bed and breakfast. And nobody in the rafting industry was running something that looked like a bed and breakfast. The clientele at that time was predominantly men, usually men looking for a pretty aggressive experience on the river. And the bed and breakfast really expanded our market into couples and more women and families with children. And it helped us start to understand how your product mix could influence your customer as much as anything else. And so our diversification really started with that. And once we saw how that was making us a strong player in the rafting industry, we worked hard to expand that advantage in building additional lodging and more unique food and beverage opportunities, adding a brewery and a pizzeria to our portfolio, as well as a restaurant we've run for probably 25 years now, the River Drivers Restaurant, which has really set a much higher standard for food quality than the industry was typically used to providing.
So, Matt, what would you say are the challenges of, I mean, you've been doing this for over 40 years now. Like, what are some of the challenges that you've run into to just keep this thing going?
Well, on the service delivery side, I would say our biggest challenge, and it's a challenge that's, I don't think it's unique to the nation, but it may be more acute here in Maine, is attracting and retaining great employees. Maine is one of the oldest states in the nation, if not the oldest average age. And we've had a lot of out migration for our youth. So we spend a lot of time and energy trying to make the same attractions that bring guests here available to our staff. We're looking at building staff housing right out here on our resort property so that people can be close to the trails and the water that they like and we like and our guests like. We've had to grow and evolve like everybody else has as the world moved away from print advertising to the digital world. And Tally has her hands wrapped right around that issue. But we were a company that, because of our lodging and the spectacular natural settings we were in, we started marketing place more than ourselves. We felt that we were in a place that people wanted to be, and if we could show that place to them and they came here, then those that liked the amenity base we had and the activities we were in would naturally hire us to or book those spaces to enjoy their visit here with. And that's worked well for us. And so in recent years, a challenge for us has been navigating this social marketing as opposed to, ad buying and printing a lot of brochures and things that we distributed all over the place. So we do very little of that now, and our focus is generally around search engine optimization, pay-per-click, mailing, and social media sites where we continue to manage and try to grow the relationship we have with existing and future customers.
I think this is a good transition into talking a little bit about the marketing then here. So I guess, how do you all work together just in terms of like developing your plans for what it is that you're going to do from a marketing perspective? What does that look like?
So developing our marketing plans has been really interesting, especially since I stepped into this role first, like full time in 2020. So what I've seen as like our trend over the years is that we were best off to move forward with the organic foot versus like purchasing stuff on like specifically Facebook and Instagram, like buying likes, buying followers. So going forward with like organic stuff, it really produces quickly like what works and what doesn't. And touching off of like what Matt says with marketing this space versus like our activities and amenities, we play around with that. So we trickle in our 4-season resort lodging, 4-season activities, and what you can specifically do during that. The people who come here are coming here for a purpose. And so a lot of the times people come here, they show up, they've booked lodging, and we end up finding that what can we do in terms of like our guerrilla marketing, which is technically the old school way for cost plus conversions, as well as, how can we attract them digitally?
Got it. Got it. Got it. So can you walk me through maybe like what exactly you're doing then to market the business?
Yeah, so we use Facebook and Instagram as our two largest social media platforms. We do have a YouTube channel as well that streamlines all of our webcams here, which do attract a lot of people, especially when the Northern Lights are going crazy. We still do use brochures. We haven't necessarily created anything new, but we do still have that. So that would be a touch point for guerrilla marketing. We have ads that we put out in local visitors guides. We use our email campaigns with Constant Contact. I think that is everything.
We do have a partner that helps manage a pay-per-click campaign for us.
PPC, yes. So anything else paid wise? So you're not really doing the social advertising at all anymore? Or is that something you still continue to do?
We don't put spent dollars behind social media advertising.
Got it. Matt, to you, where does marketing rank in your list of priorities?
It used to be high, but I found with the growth of this business, it's really something that I've had to rely more and more on Tallie to work with. And she and I, we talk about strategies, and as we've mentioned, what's going on around us drives our communication pattern, whether it's with direct mail or what we're posting on social media. I mean, one of the, I hate to say this because Google and Meta, they're all always listening, right? But
Yeah.
one of the reasons that we don't push as much money as others might towards paid social media marketing is the content that our area provides is so compelling that it gets tremendous traction. That's one of the beauties of not printing a printed piece of material that we put in the mail, but being able to send out a digital newsletter or a digital brochure. We can put substantially more active and dynamic content that's drawn from current events, the eclipse, the incredible Northern Lights that we've been experiencing here over the last couple of weeks. We actually, we're a little less surprised than others because we see the Northern Lights a lot here. And as Tallie mentioned, we've invested in things like we have a Star Cam, which is specifically engineered webcam that's designed to shoot at night. And it shoots over Katahdin, and we have hundreds of thousands of people when there's a big Aurora Borealis event or Aurora event. We have hundreds of thousands of people to look at that. We have weathermen from all over the Northeast who link to our webcam page, which of course promotes our business, and show images of it and give us, mention during their weather forecasts when interesting things are happening outside, or when it's snowing. They'll, go to our webcam to see how heavily it's snowing in northern Maine. So we've tried to do more with that and do more with direct mailing electronically, obviously not through the post office to grow our business.
Right. And I said this with Gabby, is that like what I have found great success in with our Constant Contact since I've taken it over fully in the last year is that I'm seeing a higher like click rate and a higher opening rate for when I write it like a newsletter. I'm like, hey, this is what's up and here's what we're doing. Here's what's relevant. Here's what happened last weekend. Here's what we're looking towards. People are opening that stuff rather than being like, buy this, do this, come see that.
Sure. Yeah.
We highlight trail conditions for snowmobiling and cross-country skiing. We don't just highlight things that are directly on or around our own property. We highlight the whole region. So we're constantly promoting this region because, again, this region has a super strong draw, and we fit a space within that draw. There are hotels in town that fit a different space. And, our goal is just to keep enough people moving in this direction to hopefully keep all of us full and busy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about that then. When you think about the activities that you are doing from a marketing perspective and the way things come together, I guess, how do you guys think about success and like, how do you start to measure that?
Well, I'm a numbers person. So I'm always looking at, our sales trends, what we're seeing for growth, for better or worse. Our capacity to grow has been constrained the last few years because we've grown so much through the pandemic. Most people in the hospitality industry, we spent 3 months wondering if we were going out of business. And then we're almost instantly overwhelmed by customers that were seeking the type of product that we had, which was, we had cabins, not hotels. You didn't have to ride in an elevator with other people. You could stay with your own group, or you could go outside and be as close to or as far away from other people as you wanted to be. And, with the perception, and I think the reality, that outdoor activity and fresh air and sunshine was the least risky thing you could do, we started, we'd always been growing 5 to 10% a year, but for 3 years, we grew about 30% a year. And it overwhelmed our bed base. It overwhelmed our restaurant, which is why we opened the pizzeria to help manage that traffic flow. And we're now moving into a cycle where we're going to be building more lodging and adding on. So our measure of success is in part numbers of guests visiting, revenue per available guest across the face of our company. And where we have the opportunity to build more, we'll certainly be building more. And we're pretty confident that our capacity numbers won't change. That, we run 95% capacity in our lodging for the months of June, July, August, and September, and close to the same in January, February, and March if there's decent snow on the ground. So we definitely need more beds to put people in, and hopefully within a year and a half, we'll have more of those.
Yeah. Tallie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would back that up completely. What I've just noticed in terms of like any change of like off of the number situation is that I think with COVID and like with, for example, a season like last summer, as we kind of lightly touched on prior to recording, where people are a little bit hesitant to see like the cream rises to the top, proof in the pudding. They're like, am I going to book this? I'm going to wait to see. And then they book. So we're still getting the same numbers. And it's just taking a little bit of time at some points in the seasons, because I think people are just kind of saying, like, am I going to do this? I want to see that it's going to snow. I want to see that it's going to be clear weather.
The consumer's desire for instant information and turn on a dime decision.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen as acute an example as the eclipse, where we put together a festival around the eclipse with multiple bands and food in all three of our food service centers, available to all of the people on our property. And we set out to sell 600 tickets to come to this event. And about a week and a half out, we'd sold about 350. And then in the last 5 or 6 days, we sold hundreds more tickets and ended up selling 650 and actually exceeding what our goal had been. People that bought in that last week's, as we found out, these weren't people from our neighborhood. These were people coming from the Philippines, from Oakland, California, from Florida, from the Dakotas, from Chicago, from DC. And many of these people had actually booked multiple airline tickets to different locations and waited to see what the weather was going to do. So if there isn't a better example of the consumer's willingness to be sort of strategic in where they're going for their vacation, we'd heard from the Maine Office of Tourism that they could see trends around weather where traffic would move towards Vermont or Maine, depending on which one was going to be sunnier or rainier for a weekend. But I've never seen anything quite like that. There are a lot of people out there looking for great hospitality and recreation and food experiences. And our ability to get good information to them quickly and shortly before they may want to travel seems to be more and more important.
I guess, how do you plan for that, right? I mean, that's an interesting insight to see in a trend to start to like kind of piggyback on. And so like, how do you start to work that into the things you're going to do to take advantage of those situations?
Well, it can work for us and it can work against us. Obviously, if the weather's not ideal, we may lose business, or people may wait till the last minute and then not book for this. So we're trying to balance that we built an event center that was completed last spring that can hold corporate business meetings, weddings, family reunions. It handles about 150 people. It's an absolutely gorgeous venue that has beautiful views of iconic Katahdin, our highest mountain here in the region. And we do our best to sell that, which can often fill our lodging. And that's not weather dependent. People, once they've committed to an experience in that facility, they'll come with us. And we will, as a hedge against the impacts of climate change and seeing less snow, we will sell more events in the winter, which we used to be sort of shy about selling events in the winter because we had a big snowmobile demand and we didn't want to turn them away. But as a hedge against not having the snow for those snowmobilers, we will sell more of that type of activity. And, our building out our business from just being an activity focused business to being more of a resort focused business has allowed us to have food as an amenity that makes people happy when they're here. So if the weather's not perfect, they know they've got good dining experiences that they can engage in. We're trying to help our broader community build out interesting attractions and amenities, more in the way of things like museums. Our area recently had a national monument established just a few miles away from us. And there's a visitor contact center that's going to open up there in August. That's going to be an absolute must visit destination in its own right. The monument's quite incredible, as is Baxter State Park, which is also right outside our door. But this visitor contact center will be a place that people can go to when weather's not perfect and have an incredible experience learning about the culture, the heritage, the history of this region, with a heavy emphasis on the Wabanaki, the Indian tribes that have called this place home for longer than we have.
Tallie, what do you find most challenging about marketing?
Well, I would say probably the fact that our specific marketing does go along with, the fact that we rely on what the season holds for us. And, it's hard to look ahead and say like, all right, this is how it looked last year, which was premiere. Is it going to look this way this year? I would think that that's mostly my challenge, especially with like specifically the springtime, the month of April. So like that downtime is a difficult area for me to wrap my mind around marketing. I said with Gabby, have seeked out chat GPT to be like, all right, let's get the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
I'm hitting a wall here. And it's kind of the same when it turns to like November. It's like, all right, well, how do we get that going? And what Matt kind of touched on here is that what we can get going is the fact that we have, this gorgeous world-class event center space. And, the wedding industry in this area, the wedding industry in Maine is $1 billion industry. The wedding industry here in the Katahdin region is growing rapidly. And we have our finger right on the pulse of that. So that's the kind of like the ebb and flow of challenges that I deal with.
From my perspective, having become a dinosaur in the marketing world, one of the challenges that I think we face is the pace at which marketing is evolving and staying current and staying up to speed. I mean, AI in and of itself is an incredible beast to get your arms around. And how can you get your arms around something that's moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour?
Yeah.
I mean, if you got your arms around it today and you look away, it's different tomorrow.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
That's an issue. Google and Meta, they change their algorithms and they constantly tinker with where you appear, how you perform, what's important in your site. And so we're not in an urban area where there's a lot of people with a lot of experience in that regard, and we're left to fend for ourselves often, or seek support from people that are distant to us, which is, again, there's a lot of ways to communicate these days, but those things create some challenge for us.
Yeah.
A couple of things to kind of piggyback off that a little bit. I guess one, what are you doing to try to keep pace with that? I guess is the first question, and I'll go to the other one after that.
Yeah, trying to keep pace with that is just really grasping it. I mean, even today I got on this computer, which I use my laptop sometimes, and it's telling me like, do you want to try out the new Photoshop beta? And I'm like, wait a second, I thought I was already using that, which has generative AI features. So, anytime I see an AI feature, I'm always a little bit like, do I want to engage this? I mean, Constant Contact's a good example. I touched on that as well with Gabby, is she's like, you should really try this out. It might make the workday a little bit easier. Definitely did. It's the same with, like I said, it just gets the creative juices flowing when you start to hit a little bit of a wall. I don't know that I'm at the 100% speed as somebody would be in, again, like more of an urban area.
Sure.
But I'm trying to continuously keep up with that as we move along.
Yeah. So one more question, and then I wanted to get into some of the specific stuff and even touch on some of the things you've been seeing with using the AI within Constant Contact proper. But how far in advance are you thinking? Like, are you guys putting together a marketing calendar? Like, how far in advance are you thinking through that? Like, what is, I guess, the cadence and what is the consistency with which you work when it comes to the marketing efforts that you're doing?
So I work off of a marketing calendar with Asana. And, sometimes I put in key stuff throughout the year that I'm like, all right, well, this is what we used last year. These are relevant stuff to keep in touch with. But in terms of like, I don't know, moving forward with making sure that everything's aligned, it kind of, like I said, transitions through the seasons. It's really, we kind of move like bi-weekly, I would guess, at good pace, lining stuff up bi-weekly, scheduling out content.
Got it.
It's a great question, Dave, and it's a challenge in our industry if you don't have a calendar to work from.
Right.
We know when our snowmobilers start to think about snowmobiling because we can see the hits in our, the snowmobile pages in our website starting to go up, the social media contacts starting to go up. And, we have enough experience year to year to work with that, but weather trends change that. The economy changes that. Again, the good news is the digital world allows us to react quickly if we are paying attention and actually have the time to react when we need to. Our business has grown so much in the shoulder seasons that we used to have a period of time in the spring and the fall where we could recover from the business we did
Downtime,
and
yeah.
plan for the business that we were about to do. And we're finding those times are growing shorter and shorter. One of the big promises of AI is that it's going to give us all more time. It's going to help us think these things through faster. And it can. Clearly, it can.
Yeah.
The challenge for us sometimes is finding the time to evolve with the technology as fast as it's evolving and make sure we're using it as well as we could. To the point about how we use Constant Contact in our mailing, there were attributes of Constant Contact that we didn't use, we hadn't explored. And it was great talking with folks from Constant Contact who could say, hey, have you tried this? And here's how you might use this to help make your job easier. And it has.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig into some of the stuff here, but I'm curious, Matt, from you, like, what brought you to Constant Contact to begin with?
I mean, from my memory, we've been using them forever. What's that last couple of years here in the digital world?
I think, yeah. Yeah.
And so, I think at the time, from an email management standpoint, Constant Contact's been, from my perspective, the primary player in that arena forever. And we started doing mailing. So, for our entire history as a business, Constant Contact has been a partner to us in managing our communication digitally with our guests.
Gotcha. So you mentioned things like, you've got these different audiences that you're marketing to, and I think you guys are doing a really great job of thinking that through from a segmentation standpoint. And of course, to your point earlier, Matt, it gets a little bit more difficult to do those things as those audiences increase, right? In terms of like when you need to talk to, but maybe talk me through kind of how you start to think about that and maybe some of the audiences that you start to think through specific messaging or timings and things like that that you may want to do from a marketing perspective, if that makes sense.
Historically, we have a robust reservation system that allows us to either code or automatically codes unique phone numbers that are tied to marketing campaigns. So we know where people come from. We know what they do when they come with us, if they were a rafter or a snowmobiler. And so we're able to then create targeted responses, either personalized or direct bounce back responses to each group based on what their digital trail of interest has been with us. Tallie has a big hand in sort of the content creation around how we respond. So we have a series of sort of standard in the can communications that go out to people through the booking process that, again, it's not just because it's digital, we have a lot more flexibility in what we can put in there. And so it's both an information piece and a sales piece. It tells them where to check in, but reminds them when our restaurants are open. Or reminds them if we do a special Tuesday night lobster bake, and we have a mailing that goes out to everybody a week before they come that reminds them that that's an option for them on Tuesday night. They need to sign up for it.
Yes, and I would just like to add in that, like, I like to nerd out on the numbers with Constant Contact. I love the fact that it has a heat map. I use that with our website as well as Mouseflow, so I can see where people are hanging out and what they're looking at and like actually caring about, so I can disregard other information pretty quickly. So when I go through that and I go through specifically people's emails and their names tied to that, I can then see, okay, great, this person's lodging with us. Cool. Like, let's push out this a little bit harder to them and see if they finally see the proof and they want to do it. And I have had people who do know me personally come up to me and say, I've seen you write this on social media that it's snowing. I saw you, push something out on this other platform. And then I got an email and I'm like, let's book it. We're coming up and riding.
It's amazing how you start to realize how many times it's not just one thing, but like it's the combination of those things that actually push somebody to that point to take the step, right?
For sure. And it's all authentic marketing. Again, it's not like pushing people
Right.
in an inauthentic way. It's organic.
So, Tallie, you were mentioning AI and of course, starting to play around with some of the AI content generated within Constant Contact. Tell me a little bit about how you've been using that and how that's been working for you.
So I used it for content creation when I was definitely putting together our latest campaign, because it's May. It's a good month here, especially for our watchable wildlife tours. However, we don't have too much going on in terms of like what people can do outside of that stuff. So I was just trying to put together, here are the bare bones and like how can I get this looking spicy.
I like that. Spicy. We're going to spice it
Yeah.
up. What do you guys do to, obviously having a list of people to communicate with is really important. Are there any specific things that you're doing to make sure that you're continually adding to that contact database?
Yeah, so I go onto our booking platform, which is called Roam. And what I do in there is I actually do this like once a month. I take all of our lodging guests from specific periods, and whether they're already in there or not, I just copy that whole CSV file and upload it into Constant Contact. And traditionally, there's a couple updated, emails, and then there's like a lot of added new ones. We don't have a specific plugin on our website right now because we like for it to be driven to our booking platform first, and then I extract from that. I do have different companies that I work with where we have those plugins, and that obviously makes it very quick and easy because they just add themselves into a general list. But this allows me to segment stuff out. If I know people are coming for an activity specifically for rafting, but they're not lodging with us, I'll just add them to that list.
Got it. Got it. What do you like most about Constant Contact?
I think what I like most about it is kind of what I touched on earlier is I get to like look at all the numbers and see the click-through rates. I spoke with this company recently who was like, oh, we can get you like definitely a 1% click-through. And I was like, really? We have like 4%. I think that's pretty good. And we have like 19,000 contacts. Like those kinds of things get me really pumped up. I mean, it's nervous, or it makes me nerved putting myself like out there. But again, it's like I'm behind the screen and people don't really know that it's me unless they do. And so I like seeing that people are reading it, and what gets people excited, what gets me excited.
Well, so I'm curious. So you've got I would say in most standards, a large list of people. And we were talking to someone the other day, and I've heard this numerous times, and I'm interested on your point of view on this, but unsubscribes, particularly for a small business, feel very personal sometimes. And so what is your reaction to unsubscribes, Tallie?
When I see an unsubscribe, usually I'm like, oh God, did I just send like an annoying amount of content? Are they sick of seeing how many nights a week the brewery's open, or, what is it? But traditionally, if I see that then also pop back up when I've downloaded and put in the CSV file and it's like one person has previously unsubscribed, I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's just them cleaning out their mailbox.
Yeah. Yeah. Tallie, if you had to offer a piece of advice in regards to using Constant Contact to another business, what would that be?
It would be to just do it, because it can seem really intimidating. It's email marketing. Again, you have to create copy, and that's really difficult to do, especially if you don't feel confident as a writer. But again, I encourage, that's where I would say the use of ChatGPT, stuff like that, to create the juices flowing would be helpful. But yeah, just do it.
Matt, what would it be like to try to run your business without Constant Contact?
Ooh.
I think if we didn't have it, our engagement with our customers would be obviously driven by our social media relationship with them. And we would lose some of the chance to have more direct communication with our guests than we can have on social media. We can write anything on social media, but we don't really know upfront who's going to look at it. And when we send an emailing out, we can see statistically that most people are at least taking a quick look at it, if not delving into it, and maybe clicking through links that are actively in it that lead them to certain things. So God forbid we go back to going to the post office with a giant box of things that we're mailing out.
Matt, you've been doing this and growing and doing this for a while now. What would be your best piece of business advice for any other small business owners listening?
Geez, I actually was at the Maine State award ceremony for the SBA winners here in Maine last night, and I got to listen to people that had won in a number of other categories. And I think I would come away with two things that seem consistently relevant. Small business owners are successful when they take logically calculated risks, and entrepreneurs tend to take more of those risks than others, with perhaps a little less regard for missing when you take a risk. But you have to be able to afford to miss if you want to stay in business as a small business person. So in addition to being thoughtful and doing some risk taking, it's important to have partners and allies, both in the financing side and in the business evaluation side, that can help you look at what you're doing. And most of the people that had won awards here had a long list of people that they thanked that had helped them that weren't necessarily employees. They were business advisors. They were banking partners that had worked with them. In the case of my own business, when I talked, I mentioned that as an entrepreneur, I often view financing and raising money is a necessary evil. It's not necessarily the first thing I want to do every day. But if you've got someone that's a partner with you that helps you look at creative ways to grow your business and make sure you have the funds you need to support that growth, it makes a huge difference. So none of us stand alone as small business people. We often feel like we do, but we really need to make sure we take care of and build the network of staff and supporters around us that are so important to having a community that incubates and grows your business.
Well, friend, let's recap some items from that discussion. Number one, distinguish yourself from the competition. Now, this is huge. In a time where many people are frankly doing the same thing, why should someone choose you? Hopefully, price isn't the answer. That's typically a race to the bottom. Matt recognized that he had to offer something that his competitors weren't. This revelation really allowed NEOC to add to its product mix. The decision expanded the market and influenced the customer in the decision-making process. So don't be afraid to explore what you can do that others aren't. And that doesn't necessarily mean new products either. It could just mean creating a stellar experience for your customers. So what can you do to stand out? Number two, communicate things of interest to your customers. Tallie mentioned that NEOC's communications focus on what's going on, what happened last week, what they're doing now, what's coming in the future. The newsletter is about communicating relevant information to an interested audience rather than asking for the sale. It's engagement from communications like this that actually lead to sales. People end up selling themselves on the things they're interested in doing. And number three, align your communications to your customer's calendar. Now, both Matt and Tallie highlight the importance of paying attention to when their customers do things. The challenge, of course, comes from things that impact timing, things like weather and the economy. But if you can keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on with your audience, digital tools allow you to react quickly and keep pace with an evolving customer. Here's your action item for today. Try adding some AI in your workflow. Sometimes you just need to get the creative juices flowing. The AI content generator within your Constant Contact account can help you create content across social media, email, and text. And you can even try the Campaign Builder, which gives you a multi-channel campaign based on your goals. Each can save you time and bring you new ideas to market your business. More details, of course, in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be a Marketer podcast. Please take a moment to leave us a review. Just go to ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Your honest feedback will help other small business marketers like yourself find the show. That's ratethispodcast.com/BAM. Well, friend, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and continued success to you and your business.